Hello, and welcome back to another episode of New Mommy Revelations, a podcast by New Mommy Life. And today's topic of discussion is dealing with unsolicited advice. And so today's title is How to Deal with Unsolicited Advice. Ugh, haven't we all been there? Now, I will just go ahead and just dive right in because I feel like this is going to be somewhat of a spicier conversation because I feel like these type of things can just be very subjective. However, in my personal experience, which is kind of just where I'm going to be with it for the most part with anything that we talk about here on this podcast, is understanding ways that I can look back in hindsight and how things probably could have been different, or if I would have just had more knowledge and understanding as to why someone is probably saying what they're saying or why they're behaving a certain way. And so a lot of this is that kind of full circle moment for me as well. And this podcast is just very cathartic because I'm realizing things, like I said, 2020 in hindsight now. When I say hindsight's 2020. And I'm seeing things now through a different lens that I can say that I have a lot more humility and understanding within myself. And then for two, also understanding that there are just going to be times where you're going to have to take a stand for what you firmly believe in. And I feel like the topic of unsolicited advice, especially as it pertains to being a mom, is going to be kind of a hot hot button topic, if you will, because everyone wants to, I feel, give you the best that they feel that they can give, if that even makes sense. I don't think that anyone really intentionally is going to give you some advice that's going to cause you or your child harm. I don't believe that. Now, of course, there's always going to be some unscrupulous people out there in the world. And yeah, there's going to be, times where your spidey senses are going to be kicking in. But then again, it goes back to your mama bear, mama intuition. We all have it. And as long as you are listening to it and protecting it and not allowing it to be, overshadowed by listening to outside opinions, that's just where I feel you should be, standing firm in that, and that way that you know how to filter. So for me, the first step, I spoke about this before in episode number 1, where I spoke about mom guilt, and it's about having boundaries in. And so again, that goes back to you being impeccable with your word, you understanding what's important to you, you allowing that internal voice to guide you. And that way you can take someone's advice. They can share with you their opinion about something. They can perhaps suggest a different approach or a different way to, go through something, or how to possibly prevent something, or if there's like a better way to do something. I'm not saying like all advice isn't useful. However, when you're looking at it through the lens of boundaries in, it's understanding that you have set standards that are internal, and as long as no one's trying to convince you to abandon those, then yeah, you can listen. And again, take everything with a grain of salt. Doesn't mean you have to completely change everything. You can, thank them, show appreciation, and, respectfully say, I can understand how you look at that. I understand how you could feel that way. However, these are the decisions that I've made for myself and for my child or for my children, and that's what we're going to go with. And I think that's a really good way to look at it. And even just as a conversational piece, if you just want to borrow that or kind of remix it and make it your own, because there's going to be some pushback. And I think that needs to just be said. I don't want that to be the elephant in the room, because let's not pretend that people who give out unsolicited advice are going to be the most, I don't know how to say this. Maybe they won't be as understanding from your perspective, because they're probably looking at it from a standpoint of like, well, I'm telling her this because I care. So therefore she should listen to me and she should actually do what I'm suggesting. And when you reply with, yes, I appreciate that. I respect, your stance. However, we have decided this is how we're going to move in this arena. That conversation may go left. However, how I said before, having those boundaries in will ensure that it doesn't go too far off on the deep end to where, relationships are being strained and there's going to be a lot of unnecessary conflict that just doesn't need to exist because, again, there's no blueprint to this. How I said in the very beginning of like how this all came to be, there's no blueprint to be a great mom. Like, we are all doing the best that we can with the tools and resources that we have at our disposal, as well as our internal growth that we are investing in. Doing that internal work is always going to be a never ending thing. Our souls are going to keep growing, evolving, and maturing. And as long as you have the mindset of you are looking at this from a standpoint of ensuring that this is going to be benefiting our family holistically. So, little differences in opinions here and there, it really shouldn't be that big of a deal. However, if there's going to be, some differences of opinion and some conflicts and, a little bit of confrontation at times, I don't shy away from that. And I don't think you should either, because that's where you stand firm in those boundaries. And if there is confrontation, it just means you are going to be confronting something. It doesn't mean there's going to be violence. It doesn't mean there's going to be, colorful words, ad hominems being thrown around. Like, we shouldn't be dragging people, as they say, or reading people for filth, as the saying is, on social media and whatnot. We should just be respectful of, yes, I, as, an outsider, a third party, can see something and I'm going to say something because I'm speaking from my heart. At the same time, understanding that it is, the mom's final say. And you, as the mom, can also have that standpoint of understanding the compassion and the love that the other person may have and may be feeling as to why they're even bringing this up to you. At the same time, again, boundaries in and you remaining firm in those decisions that you've made, and knowing also that you do have the final say and not at all feeling guilty or having any shame if you have to reinforce those boundaries. Secondly, I will say just knowing yourself, and I feel this kind of ties into boundaries in. However, the slight difference here is knowing yourself, knowing your heart, listening to your heart, and understanding that you, how I said before, are putting not just yourself, your children's future in the best possible position for them to thrive. So whatever decision, whatever, potential differences in opinions about something, like, I don't know, just little things like if they should or shouldn't be consuming certain food at a certain age. Like, I personally had kind, for the most part, completely vegan, vegetarian for the first 5 years of her life, 5, 6 years of her life. Because I'm plant-based for the most part. We have a little bit of meat here and there, but it's just not really a big staple in our diet. Now, some people might, feel like that's silly. They mean like, no, she needs her protein. No, she needs this, she needs that. And I've had those conversations. I've had people push back on me and say, no, she needs to be eating XYZ. That doesn't make any sense. However, because boundaries in, and then for two, I know myself, I'm making the best decision that's good for her. And to be all the way frank, those people that were telling me that I was making a mistake by having her be plant-based and following my plant-based vegan vegetarian, program, nutritional program, they honestly really weren't healthy people. So they really didn't have a place to really tell me anything about health, because they literally were like some of the most unhealthy people. So again, that's where it goes into discernment, boundaries, and knowing yourself. And yes, I could see how they were thinking that they were giving me some good advice. However, it was unsolicited because I did not ask them. And then secondly, they just thought they saw something that they thought was a problem that they wanted to lend their voice to solving. However, I had to handle it, very highbrow, very respectfully, and just say, well, this is just what it is. And science and statistics have shown this. Nutritional experts have shown this. I've done extensive research and reading about this. I've studied these, areas of how holistic health works. And I had left it at that. It wasn't even about it becoming an argument or a back and forth. It was just more of a, Well, this is what I've done up to this point to educate myself about things, and these are decisions that I've made moving forward, and these are the outcomes that I know can come of things if it goes unchecked, and I'm just going to follow the typical standard American diet, as they say, and just allow her to eat what other people may or may not choose to feed their children. That's just not the way that we're going to go. We're not going to lead that lifestyle. We don't lead a artificial, food out of a box, fast food nation type of mentality. Like, we don't have that. Like, I've always been more, you cook at home, whole meals, whole foods, real ingredients. I read labels like crazy. I don't just take everything as is. I'm always going to do research and find out about things to the best of my ability. And then I'm going to sit back and trust myself because I know myself. And I know my intentions are to set her up for the future to be healthy and to thrive. And a big part of that is nutrition. And so I'm just using that as an example of knowing myself, because me leading a healthy lifestyle, like even till this day, everyone that I know, even people that I have just recently met, I'm just like known as like the health nut in the group or the health nut in the family. And those that look at me can see that I live a very healthy lifestyle. I live a very clean, healthy, holistic lifestyle. I'm not saying anything that I don't do. Like, I practice what I preach. So it only makes sense that I'm going to extend my knowledge and awareness to my child so she can develop better habits, and she does not develop bad habits. I almost said bad habits there. I don't want her to develop bad habits. I can't make all her decisions for her, and I tell her all the time she has the biggest sweet tooth, and I'm just like have to be on her like white on rice about it. However, when she gets older, of course she's going to be able to do what she wants to do. If she wants to go on some crazy sugar binge, I'm not going to be able to tell her anything because she's an adult at that point and she's going to be doing her own thing. However, I know that I set the foundation up. I educated her. I informed her about the risks. I told her, about potential consequences that could happen if she doesn't lead a healthy lifestyle. And then, of course, she's going to make up her own mind. But I know that I did my part as her mom, and I set her up for success. And I feel like that's the last part here that I'll end it on. Hello, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I wanted to stop in here real briefly and invite you all to join the Mama Tribe. If you to do so, you can do so by visiting us online at newmommylifetv.com, or you may click the link below the video or the podcast here. It'll take you straight away over to that. There we have our bi-weekly Mama Tribe newsletter where we share access to important topics that go over homeschooling, our home educational resources, as well as for the new moms or the new mamas to be, how to create and experience an empowered and harmonious pregnancy, prenatal, and or postpartum plan, plus community building and ways to be more loving towards yourself while on your mommyhood journey. And so if you haven't joined yet, we encourage you and welcome you in. And we look forward to connecting with all you mamas out there. And now we're back into our regularly scheduled program. When you're dealing with unsolicited advice and you understand that, yes, that person may be coming from a place of love and care, at the same time, as long as it's not conflicting with the end goal, which is to nurture and love on our children, so that way they're healthy, they're healed, they're whole, and they are thriving in the world, and they're equipped to be able to do that. Anything like little bumps along the way, it really shouldn't be that big of a deal, because ultimately it's about the outcome. How I look at it, like I look at it from a perspective of like, when I'm no longer here, I want Kind to be thriving. When Kind is my age now, I want her to be thriving. And so every decision that I make is setting her up for success. So any outside opinions, anything that goes against my core, anything that's going to potentially try to violate my boundaries in, as well as trying to get me to think that I don't know myself when I do, those things don't work on me anymore. And it was a process. Again, I'm definitely not going to say it was easy. I went through the whole gamut of emotions just like you have, or if you've dealt with similar things of where people try to give you advice about something or question your decision making or say you shouldn't do a certain thing or why are you doing this or why did you decide to do that. A second thing was homeschooling. My decision to do that from the jump. It was not just because the pandemic happened in 2020 had parents in disarray. No, I was completely unfazed about that because I had already planned while she was in utero to be a homeschool mom. So and nothing changed in my life. I had already made that decision long before she was even birthed. So that's just another example of knowing yourself. When you've made decisions for yourself and for the betterment of your baby, no one can come in and tell you otherwise. And if you have to push back a little bit and just say, hey, I understand and I appreciate your care and concern. However, there's really no need for it. We're good. We got it. We're covered over here and just keep it at that. And of course, at that point, there really shouldn't be any more issues. But if there is, it's just like, well, you know what? She was born, I gave birth to her. She's kind of like under my covering and under my guidance because God had blessed me with the ability to be in this position and be in this role. And I guess to be frank, it's like, well, if you want to have the same position, then you can go have a child and you can raise it your way. And I think that's a little cheeky or a little snarky response. However, if it goes there, I'm not afraid to say it. I've never had to say it. However, I wouldn't be afraid to say it. And what I do love about this platform is the fact that I just love that we can just be very honest and real and raw here. And yeah, mom, if you ever feel someone's trying to bully you or team up on you, don't be afraid to exert your boundaries and stand firm in the position of who you are because you were called in this position for a reason. And if someone is feeling that they know better than you, you can definitely pull that card and remind them and just, keep it classy, keep it graceful, and keep it highbrow, and then keep it moving. And so, yeah, this is a short and sweet episode I wanted to share because I think we've all dealt with it. I know there's variations and topics that I guess maybe could be a little bit more hot button than others. And I feel like food, education, and like socialization are like the biggest three. Like something about those topics, everyone automatically becomes an expert somehow, some way. I don't know how. And they want to go around with their, I don't know, holier than thou righteousness and trying to tell you how to do it just because maybe they did it a certain way. Also look at the fruits of their tree. I would even dare to say that, like if it's an older person who's trying to tell you something you should or shouldn't be doing. And this could be family, this could be friends, it could be complete people out in the world. Because I've even had people that were older than me come up to me and give me advice sometimes. We were at the beach one day actually, and it was Klein's first time going to the beach. Her dad and I had took her there for a little mini family photo shoot. And this older woman had came up to me and just said, oh, you should cover her head. It's really sunny outside. She shouldn't have all that sun on her. And I didn't say anything back or be snarky about it. I said, oh yeah, thank you. And we just went about our day. She had some little bit of sunblock on her. We had, some photos with her hat on and with it out. But, we were just having, a quick little family fun day. So it wasn't that big of a deal. So I didn't make a big deal out of it. Now, of course, I know in her heart, she was probably thinking, oh my gosh, that baby doesn't need to be having that sun on her. And I didn't need to go on about, the benefits of the sun and vitamin D and how it is actually healthy for us to be in the sun, within limitation. I'm not saying we're going to just go out and bake in the sun and get sunburnt, So again, just another example of like, don't take everything so serious. At the same time, if someone is trying to make it an issue, don't be afraid to stand firm, maintain your boundaries and trust and lean on yourself because only you know what is best for you. So that's all that I have for today's episode. Thank you so much again for listening. And if you would like to listen to the next one, that is deciding on the home education route, plus ways to stop naysayers in their track, because I have dealt with that very much. And even though, again, I was a planned homeschooler from jump, I have done all the research. I had already knew the stats. I had looked at the prison pipeline statistics. I had read several books, academic papers, watched lectures, invested in courses. And again, I still had to make the best decision that was good for me which why it led me to create a holistic program that works for us. And again, if you would like to learn and get a copy of the blueprint that I have, you can purchase on our website at newmommylifetv.com. There's also a quiz on there for you to figure out if this route is good for you or ways to make it work in a way that can make sense. Because ultimately, home education is the first education, whether your children attend private or public school or have some sort of other alternative school, they're still being educated in the home. And I think that's the part that gets overshadowed, or it gets too much in the debate of whether or not it's actually good education or if the children are going to be smart enough. So I'm going to save all that for that episode there. But if you are interested into listening, you can go ahead and click over to that video there. And let me know, how do you feel about this, moms? Like, have you dealt with unsolicited advice? How do you feel about it? Maybe share a quick story if you feel comfortable, and just let me know, what are your thoughts around this topic. So I know it can be kind of hot button, and it can be very frustrating. At least I was frustrated, and so I just want to provide an outlet for moms to speak freely and feel comfortable in a safe space. And let me know how you feel. And as always, thanks so much again, and I will talk to you and see you all very, very soon. Thank you all again so very much for today's episode. If you would love to learn more about all the things we have going on, talking about anything as it pertains to womanhood, crafting out an empowered and harmonious prenatal and postpartum or pregnancy plan, as you are pouring into creating and raising a more conscious community, as you pour into more self-aware and conscious children that you are raising personally, as well as how we can all band together and create more community that is sharing that same sacredness and the space of that. We encourage you to visit us online on the website. It's newmommylifetv.com. Again, that's newmommylifetv.com. We have a couple resources there for you, and we can't wait to connect with you all in the very near future. Have a great one.